favorite exploitation movie poster taglines. Go. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Who will survive, and what will be left of them? I don't think anyone loses a single limb in the original. Black Christmas. If this movie doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight. Yikes. What does that even mean? How about The Mutilator? By sword, by pick, by axe, bye-bye. Whatever that copywriter was paid for that was not enough. And then, of course, The King is the movie Pieces, proclaiming simply, it's exactly what you think it is. Incredible. But somewhere pretty high on the list has got to be the tagline for the 1975 movie Snuff, the film that could only be made in South America, where life is cheap. Cheap in all caps. Snuff. Yeah, that's pretty racist. Pretty sure our near neighbors to the south aren't just killing people willy-nilly. But this was the 1970s. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have Snopes, and people were not watching this at an AMC theater with signature recliners trademarked. Nor was there a welcome from Nicole Kidman.
We come to this place for magic.
Scream! Go on, scream!
Oh, no, not yet. No spoilers. This was the porno chic era. The theater that you're seeing this in may have also been showing hardcore porn at the same time. Audiences understood that those movies weren't showing simulated sex, it was the real deal. So along comes this movie, presumably imported from South America, and it's promising real-life human mutilation. It's being banned and protested across the country, so as an audience member, it would be difficult to decipher the reality of the situation. But the truth is, Snuff is a movie that could only be made in America. That's not quite true. There's actually tons of nasty exploitation movies being made all over the world at this point. Sorry. Just also, I should be clear before some know-it-all slams me in the YouTube comments, this movie was mostly made in South America, Argentina, in fact. And I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it, man. Let me cook! Anyway, here's some newspapers and scary music. Snuff starts with an extended sequence cutting back and forth between the most triggering images for a 1970s audience. Motorcycle riding, which we can all agree is the scariest form of all two-wheeled transportation, because the people riding on it often wear leather, which, incidentally, is the most frightening of all the animal-based textiles. The second is a woman who appears to be holding a dope cigarette. Thus begins the portion of the film shot in Argentina, which becomes clearer as the awful dubbing makes its first appearance.
Hasn't Anna got some good stuff?
The lady thankfully takes a break from her drug usage and confusingly pours out some pixie stick candy into her hand and smells the recently vacated packaging, presumably to enjoy the nostalgic smells of her childhood. But these innocent daydreams about her halcyon years are cut short when she is chased by an intimidating group of gaunt models that we saw riding the motorcycle earlier. She is shot. And then a man shows up, something of a Charles Manson type.
You have disobeyed me.
Yes.
He initiates a torture method that induces her to make noises, just like those women made in Herbal Essence commercials back in the 90s. You remember those ones that made my mom so nervous, she was always changing the channel away from them?
It will leave your hair looking beautiful.
Anyway, fortunately she survives, and one of the girls administers what looks like a pretty legitimate medical procedure, which I assume heals her right up. If this extended torture sequence reeks suspiciously of someone's fetish, you're probably not wrong. What we're watching was not originally titled Snuff, but rather a movie called Slaughter that was purchased, repackaged, and mildly rejiggered into the movie we now know as Snuff. This whole Argentinian Charles Manson story was filmed by married filmmaking duo Michael and Roberta Findlay. You know, there's a popular current trend for filmmakers to refer to themselves as perverts, or their filmmaking as a perversion. I don't know if it was inspired by popular Slovenian intellectual Slavoj Žižek.
Cinema is the ultimate pervert art. It doesn't give you what you desire. It tells you how to desire.
But I suspect his influence is part of it.
The violent attacks of the birds are obviously explosive outbursts of the maternal figure, so the birds are raw incestuous energy.
Brian De Palma.
I love photographing women.
I'm fascinated by the way they move. I love to follow them.
See more evidence of that in my De Palma episode. Nicholas Winding Refn will stumble over himself to make sure you know he's a pervert.
One of the strange elements of being a fetish filmmaker is when you see other fetish filmmakers.
And David Fincher has this famous quote.
I think people are perverts. I've maintained that. That's the foundation of my career.
But as insistent as they are of this dubious honor, they remain pretty vanilla when compared to the Findlays. Michael had his breakout with 1967's The Touch of Her Flesh. Which then, with the help of his wife Roberta, they fleshed out into a trilogy. The original movie is about a man, played by Michael.
I have to catch the bus to Boston.
Yes, you do, Michael. Yes, you do. Who walks in on his wife cheating on him. And runs outside only to be hit by a vehicle and disfigured. The rest of the film is him taking out his hatred of all women by torturing them and killing them in various states of undress.
My dear Claudia, let me see those breasts before they die.
His character is killed at the end, but trifling details like that never stopped a glorious return. The following films in the trilogy follow the same formula.
You know, you're even more beautiful than you appear on stage.
The disfigured man has somehow recovered and is off to do a series of sexy murders. Keep in mind, this trilogy was completed in 1968, preempting the first Friday the 13th by over a decade. So in a sense, this is the purest distillation of a slasher franchise. Truly the platonic ideal. Disfigured killer appears during sex and kills. Sex, then violence. 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 And yes, I know the killer in the first one was Jason's mother. I said, let me cook! Sex, then violence. Sex, then violence. Sexy, then violence. I know he's not in 5 either. Leave it. Look, sex, then violence. Sex, then violence. Sex, then violence. Sexy, then violence. I mean, you get the point. Sex, then violence. I mean, you see what I've done here. Sex, then violence. You guys know what I'm talking about. Sex, then violence. My point has been pretty well illustrated at this point. Sex, then violence. We're almost there. Sex, then violence. Almost there. Attempted sexual assault, then violence. Sexy, then violence. Sex, then violence. Sex, then violence. Sexy, then violence. Sexy, then violence. Sex, then violence. Sex, then violence. Sexy, then violence. Sex, then violence. Anyway, over a decade before Friday the 13th, Findlay had already trimmed the fat away by cutting out extraneous elements the audience didn't care about, like the plot or the clothing. On May 16th, 1977, about 2 years after his film Slaughter had been repackaged and released as Snuff, Michael was atop the Pan Am building in New York preparing to board a helicopter. Halfway through the passenger boarding, the pilot reported hearing a faint noise, and he barely had time to cut the engines before the right side landing gears failed and the aircraft gently rolled 45 degrees onto its side. Though the engines were cut, the momentum of the blades continued as the craft tipped over, literally cutting up and killing Findlay and 2 other passengers who had yet to board. The debris of the disintegrating blades flew toward the ground and even killed a woman on the corner of Madison and 43rd and seriously injured another. I've read parts of the official accident report, and I don't know if I'll ever quite forget the language of the pilot describing the helicopter gently rolling onto its side. What strange language. The horrifying visceral reality of people being literally chopped up by helicopter propellers juxtaposed with the staid description of gently rolling onto its side feels, I don't know, surreal? Roberta and Michael had officially separated 3 years earlier in 1974, but she had continued to work as his cinematographer occasionally. During that time, and through the early 80s, she was also writing and directing hardcore pornography. You can find posters for many of these films, and again, since this was during the porno chic era, many are charmingly adorned with critics' quotes, implying there was some measure of lofty discernment in the 42nd Street crowd, who sought out expert guidance at the time to avoid making an unforgivable critical blunder when picking out their porno movie for the evening. In the 1980s, she went mostly legit, making, well, not exactly mainstream movies, but non-pornographic movies that were destined to end up as curios that genre fans might dig up on Tubi.
You think I'm crazy? Well, go look in the kitchen. She's in there and I'd kill her.
The Oracle provides the answers to a nightmare of the soul.
Back with the movie, we join a man at the airport as he washes his hands until... But this does provide our actor with a promising submission clip for Oscar consideration.
Help me! Somebody help me!
The murderer takes off her trench coat and tosses it onto the ground, keenly aware that 1970s cops don't know squat about collecting DNA evidence. Observe as she then sneaks away in the shadows, much like an expert ninja. A couple more bags of blood are introduced in the form of an actress and her boyfriend bickering as they exit a plane. They are interrupted by reporters asking hard-hitting questions like,
"In this new film, will she be doing any nude scenes?"
When they arrive at their rental home, boyfriend Max paws at her sensually until she asks him to stop.
It's not easy to leave you alone, Terry. Okay. I don't want you to think that Maximilian Marsh can't control himself.
Wait, is that just the voice of Michael Findlay doing some terribly lazy dubbing?
My poisoned semen should take care of you well enough. So long, sucker!
Yeah, I thought so. Then we get a scene for the fellas. Feast your eyes on our actress babe swimming in a bikini. So that's pretty cool. What appears to be a magical wardrobe switch from brown bikini to green is actually just a bizarre editing choice to intercut our actress with a nearly identical looking woman that we meet moments later when our actress calls up her secret boyfriend, Horst, that she's apparently been cheating on her director boyfriend with. It appears the second woman is not exactly stoked about this arrangement either.
Oh, Angelica, you're so frigid. I wish for once you could be enthusiastic about anything.
That's not necessary, Horst. You have enough enthusiasm for us both.
But, as I've been led to understand it, life is cheap in South America, and so, presumably, are statuesque model girlfriends.
Satan, I can't stay there. Now this actress, Terry London, came in from New York. He's with her now.
Well, it turns out that Horst's girlfriend has been sent by the Charles Manson guy, whose actual name is Satan. Some of you alert, more literary-minded viewers might be able to decipher that name as a sneaky reference to the Prince of Darkness, aka Satan, who is essentially, I'd argue, like the bad guy in that book called the Bible. Turns out Satan has sent her to be Horst's girlfriend in order to get pregnant for some nefarious purpose.
I sent you there to bear his child.
But now Satan realizes that the actress Terry could be the one to get pregnant. For what purpose? We do not know.
The two of them will create the victim for my sacrifice.
Oh, well, right, obviously. They need a child for their sacrifice. They then swim together naked in a river, apparently unaware or perhaps unafraid of the possible UTIs you can get from bacteria entering your urethra from swimming in dirty water.
And from these muddy waters will spring a new existence.
The biker chicks from earlier appear on the riverbank and slowly become less scary as they shed their leather, and then their bikinis? Which surprises me, as bikinis are garments I traditionally associate with swimming, but perhaps they are intentionally removing any shred of protection from UTIs. Perhaps this new existence Satan is promising from the muddy waters is one in which there's a persistent urge to urinate and a burning feeling upon performing said act of urination. Maybe that's what that Bible book means when it says that Satan works in mysterious ways. Either way, it's just one more brick in the wall of the sophisticated thematic opacity the film taunts its viewers with. We then get an extended scene of aquatic horseplay, exactly the kind of devil-may-care rules-breaking foreshadowed with the gratuitous motorcycling from that opening scene. We shift scenes to actress Terry and Horst indulging in some kissing-related horseplay before the phone rings. It turns out to be her boyfriend Max, who is upset that it's 1 p.m. and she still hasn't shown up for work. His distress is made even clearer when he delivers this emotionally stirring petition.
You're not going to let me down, are you? Just get over here. Terry. It's important to you.
The young cuckolders argue about her acting career as the off-screen script supervisor tantalizingly dangles the script on the edge of the screen. Presumably, this is a Brechtian meta-commentary on the idea that movies are the kind of thing that this film is. This high-minded theory of mine is solidified when you notice there's a gun in the frame, because movies are shot, and this is one of those things. Not some lame play where Chekhov might gratuitously show that gun again in a later scene. Before we can wrestle with the profundity of all that, we're presented with some sophisticated repartee between Satan's double agent and Horst.
What are you reading?
Words, words.
And then the hammer falls.
Terry is pregnant.
How Terry became pregnant and he gained knowledge of this within the span of him leaving the bed and walking out of his house is a surrealist mystery normally reserved for the works of David Lynch. And much like the late Lynch, the filmmakers remain fearless in their filmic vision and don't talk down to the audience by over-explaining every last little thing.
I'm sorry, Max.
Okay, we'll try it once more. After the carnival.
We transition to a sequence at a carnival and immediately can spot the telltale sign of archival footage edited in between shots from the shift in quality of film stock. This archival footage of non-Western cultural celebration immediately draws comparison to the, at the time, relatively recent phenomenon of Mondo documentary, the shockumentary films of the 60s.
All the scenes that you are about to see are real. Sometimes they seem cruel. It is only because cruelty abounds on this planet.
These were kicked off by Mondo Cane, an Italian film which would set the baseline that needed to be outdone by subsequent films. Mondo Cane presents itself as a sort of exotic travelogue, reveling in exoticized footage of cultures around the world, focusing primarily on what might shock or titillate.
In Tokyo, a city of 10 million inhabitants, 6 million women look after 4 million men each day, cuddling, admiring, serving, and massaging them.
Showing purported widespread cultural activities seemingly always revolving around either violence or nudity. The violence in the first Mondo Cane seems particularly focused on footage of violence against animals, a consistent motif that continued to stain Italian cinema for years, including bleeding into their fictional exploitation films, particularly the cannibal genre with films like Cannibal Holocaust, Cannibal Ferox, and Man from Deep River. It takes very little effort to argue that these films' aims are, well, racially and culturally exploitative and ethnocentric.
The Mexicans prefer them alive, wrapped in tortillas with hot sauce.
The films show little in the way of curiosity or contextualization, but rather aim quite pointedly for shock. It takes even less effort to argue that the main reason for the creation of these sensationalized documentaries was to skirt around censorship laws that would otherwise ban or limit the distribution of such graphic material. The films always adopted the exceptionally thin veneer of being public interest documentaries to justify their content.
Our camera is now positioned behind a two-way mirror in the dressing room of this shop. The women you will see have no idea they're being photographed.
This strategy was also seen in many 1960s sexploitation films that were referred to as, quote, white coders, which always presented a wobbly pretext by introducing an expert or doctor with dubious credentials who would provide a flimsy educational context for the explicit film you're about to watch. They were called white coders because, you know, doctors and scientists wear white coats. It's the uniform that lends credibility. These movies were often foreign imports from European countries like Germany or more often Sweden, which also helped lend an air of sophistication. 1969's Language of Love is one of the most notable ones. It's filmed in a style that could accurately be described as a cross between Wes Anderson and an IKEA catalog. That's not just me using stereotypes. Look at the set design. Its stylized production is genuinely remarkable. But I can't let my rabbit trail stop there. I'm going to be, presumably, the first person in history to compare Mondo shockumentaries to the work of classic filmmaker Cecil B. DeMille. You see, in the early 1930s, the Hollywood Production Code was being developed. The Code, as it was called, was Hollywood's strategy of self-censoring their films in conjunction with the Catholic Church to tamp down the political backlash from accusations of racy content, and also a series of scandals that resulted in much of the country growing morally suspicious of the film industry. The Production Code was authored in part by Father Daniel Lord, here putting up his dukes for some reason, and was famous for prohibiting certain content deemed immoral, as rendered in this famous photo. What is often overlooked by places like, I don't know, say the Catholic Education Resource Center, in their hagiographical depiction of Father Lord as the quote-unquote good censor, whose prohibitions made it so now filmmakers had to, quote, tell stories, was that the prohibition list included miscegenation, which is to say, the code prohibited the depiction of interracial couples or romance. This is in addition to discouraging filmmakers from being critical of the church or American government. Enter Cecil B. DeMille, director known by your grandparents as the guy who made gentle Bible epics like 1956's The Ten Commandments. And also by your great-grandparents as the guy who made 1923's The Ten Commandments. Needless to say, he is now mostly known for his Bible films. Well, much like Mondo films that would come decades later, DeMille discovered that a great way of skirting moral objection and potential censorship was utilizing the Trojan horse of making a movie about Bible times.
Take off your clothes. Get in here and tell me all about it.
Father Lord feared as much, writing DeMille to please not make your pagans attractive, warm-blooded, alive human beings and your Christians plaster saints. His 1932 film, Sign of the Cross, is ostensibly fan fiction leaning on the early Acts of the Apostles, with a little Fox's Book of Martyrs peppered in for some extra zesty spice. Turns out, this gives broad license to have some sweet gladiatorial combat, nude women tied to posts for apes to attack, a tempting lesbian dance, and most importantly, the sex idol superstar Claudette Colbert to be naked in a milk bath that, by all reports, got pretty disgusting under the hot movie lights, but regardless, remained eye-openingly erotic. So whether it be DeMille pretending to care about the Christian faith, Sweden pretending to care about sex education, or Italian documentarians pretending to care about cultural studies, we see here that the arc of film history often does little to disprove Zizek's accusations.
Cinema is the ultimate pervert art.
Kyoto is, for example, one of the largest exporters of women's undergarments in the world.
While Mondo films were always more fictitious than the films themselves suggest, they became increasingly fictionalized.
These slaves probably find their way into the brothels of the Middle East, where they will provide the physical incarnation of love,
resulting in fully fictional films adopting the moniker or genre as a sort of sign of ideology or just as a rebellious posture. John Waters, unsurprisingly, jumped in with his film Mondo Trasho.
Oh, God! It isn't easy being divine.
Mondo Brutal was in fact the name of the German release of Wes Craven's Last House on the Left. And then there's the film I promise I will eventually do before justifiably being deplatformed. Goodbye, Uncle Tom.
I have heard God's voice.
Which is one of the most insane and upsetting movies I've ever watched.
Told me to write a story, to write a book. I think I'll call it Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Which creates a fiction in which, unexplainably, an Italian documentary film crew helicopters into the antebellum South and examines slavery in ways that are more unsavory than you are imagining right now by several orders of magnitude. Even mega mammary fan Russ Meyer got in on the action with Mondo Topless, which, you know, to borrow the tagline of Pieces, it's exactly what you think it is. But once again, I'm compelled to point out that despite Mondo Cane introducing a unique level of prurient salaciousness to the form, the history of the documentary film is brimming with fraudulent BS. The first week of your college documentary film class will undoubtedly introduce you to Robert Flaherty and his seminal documentary Nanook of the North. Essential viewing for documentary history. Like Mondo films that succeeded it, Nanook is a travel picture, promising to show the exotic lifestyle of an Inuit man, Nanook, as he shows off his charming, outdated indigenous lifestyle. In the documentary, Nanook shows off his multiple cute wives, shows how he makes an igloo that delightfully includes a skylight, marvels at the miracle of audio technology at a trading post, and engages in a thrilling walrus hunt with harpoons. Remarkably, Flaherty's film is generally respectful of his subject, given the era it was made. Of course, critiques of this exoticizing approach to filming indigenous people can be found far and wide elsewhere, so I won't remark too much on it, but for our purposes, let me point out a few things. Namely, the traditional building of the igloo, with inclusion of charming skylight, was done essentially as just a flourish for Flaherty's film. The Nanook, and presumably most indigenous people in the region at the time, were familiar with modern technology, including gramophones, and for some time had been hunting with rifles rather than harpoons. Nanook's wives in the film were in fact not Nanook's wives, but were, point of fact, common law wives of Flaherty. And finally, Nanook was in fact not named Nanook. Flaherty just invented the name Nanook, thinking it was more marketable than his real name, which, to be fair, I don't think I can pronounce. So while Mondo Films cannot claim first blood on a lot of its most notable attributes, it did combine them all into an obscene and titillating package that boasted of its shock appeal, and undoubtedly provided the architectural renderings for the bombastic and unapologetic style of exploitation pictures, of which Snuff is a pristine example. Back at the carnival, a masked figure takes Terry into a room and locks the door.
Open the door.
Not until you give me what I want from you.
As Terry begins to fear this was a trap designed for sexual assault, Horst removes his mask and reveals that no, it was just in fact a hilarious rape prank.
I can see you can't take a joke.
Terry is so lame that she can't even enjoy a brilliant prank designed to make her feel like she was about to be sexually assaulted in a foreign country. And in that moment, it dawns on the audience that perhaps this plague of wokeness isn't such a modern invention after all. Chicks being like total killjoys we now see has been around since at least the 1970s, maybe even before.
Who the hell do you think you are?
Basically, a very bad, spoiled rich boy.
I'll agree with that.
The filmmaker cuts back and forth between the obvious stock footage of the carnival and Terry making noises, which I can only assume means her toe is being cut with a knife or her hair is being washed with shampoo.
She ran the purple in the shower for another half an hour. She's got the urge, natural botanical. She's got the urge to burble.
Meanwhile, her boyfriend Max drunkenly follows Satan's disguised double agent into a back room and is stabbed.
You never saw Marsh again?
No.
An investigator interrogates Terry.
Not until...
The morgue, early this morning.
I'm getting really good at recognizing Michael Findlay's terrible dubbing voice.
So long, sucker!
Wait a minute, I'm realizing that is Michael Findlay.
I may be able to help you, but first you're going to have to help me. 7 people were murdered last night. Each was found with a knife like this embedded in his back.
Wait, his back? Let's check the tape. Nope.
We're through with our questions. We find nothing suspicious.
Always helpful when the cops keep suspects appraised of their suspicion level.
You can't just brood, Terry. It's the worst thing you could do. Forget Marsh. Forget the whole ugly business. I want to be near you.
Huh? Forget Max?
Yes, why not? You're alive now, not him.
What else can I do now, Horst? Okay, but let's get going fast.
Man, now I wish Horst had been around when my grandpa died. His thoughtful words would have provided me comfort in those dark days.
You're alive now, not him.
When the couple returns to Horst's home, we are introduced to Horst's father, who is revealed to be an arms dealer.
The Frank Arms Company is only one of the many enterprises I control. Surely you don't find that shocking?
No, not at all. It's just that, I hope you don't take offense at this. It's disturbing to hear a German supplying arms to an enemy of the Jews.
Terry!
This conversation is cut short by Satan entering unannounced.
You were speaking of butchers.
And the discussion becomes philosophical.
I've always thought the profession of butcher is an honorable one. What would we do without... They have chosen the profession that is beneficial to us all. They slaughter and chop up their victims so that the rest of us may have the wherewithal to live. From them we get life. But the man that sells him the knife he uses to slash the dumb animal's throat does nothing but profit from the blood that is spilled.
You can ask what the butcher would do without the knife.
That indeed would be terrible. Mankind would starve. No.
If you're hoping that these ideas will contribute to the rich thematic tapestry of the film, you'll be sad to hear that none of this business of arms dealing is relevant, and it is never mentioned again.
I am who am.
That's blasphemy! Get out!
Good night.
This leads to an extraordinarily convincing scene shot day for night, where a woman is tortured until she calls on the name of Satan and says she will submit to him.
Satan! 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 Oh, please, please stop.
That's enough. Let her up.
What submission involves is unclear, as we mostly cut back and forth between close-up of ladies' faces, and we hear the sounds of herbal essence hair washing.
She ran the purple in the shower for another half an hour. She's got the urge.
If anyone can help me figure out what's going on in this scene, please let me know in the comments. I've been a bit hesitant to try the shampoo for myself, so I guess there's a whole world I'm yet to be exposed to.
With all natural botanicals and organic herbs and pure mountain water, it will leave your hair looking
beautiful. The shopkeeper in the next scene seems to be confused as well.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
As does the old lady that pulls up outside the shop.
What on earth is going on here? What kind of a joke is this?
This kind, Grandma.
Yeah, you see, there's someone stabbed in the back.
Are you sorry now you've given yourself to me?
No.
Being the forward-thinking leader he is, afterwards Satan initiates a performance evaluation with his new hire.
I demand more than anyone else could.
Satan explains 6 months have passed and announces a change in corporate protocol, a pivot, if you will.
5, 6, 7 months have passed. I've waited long enough. The time has come for you, my girls, to kill them all. The time has come for slaughter.
And then we are thrust into the middle of a bizarre conversation with Horst and a man and his wife, where the man admits he likes it when his wife sleeps with other men.
You don't mind her then having an affair with me?
On the contrary, it provides me with my main amusement.
So a drunken Horst appears to oblige him.
We'll go back to the servants' quarters.
Can I have just one little peek?
No, stay there.
Meanwhile, Angelica and another of the girls arrive at the locked gates of Horst's estate.
Hi, May.
She calls out to one of the employees, Jamie, who checks first with our cameraman to make sure it's okay to let her in. When he lets them in, he is promptly stabbed. More of Satan's girls arrive, and they all crash the cuckolding party. We then see the determined drunken husband has scaled onto the roof to ensure his cuckolding designs are playing out as intended. I can only assume this is yet another biblical allusion to perhaps Mark chapter 2, where men climb onto the roof to see Jesus and to lower their paralyzed friend down to him. But instead of the transcendent miracle the cuckold husband was hoping to witness, they are all ambushed.
What the hell are you doing?
I'll show you what we're doing.
In a rare moment of the filmmakers showing restraint, we do not see explicitly the stab wound in the wife, nor of the husband, who, in a cruel twist of irony, is now involved in the penetration, contrary to the entire design of his explicit wishes in this situation. Horst is apparently captured and then whipped, which feels less motivated by the plot and more by the filmmaker's own lurid proclivities. Then one of the women is handed a knife, and when she closes in on Horst, we get another, now familiar, signature Michael Findlay flourish of cutting between faces while echoes of shampoo commercials ring in the back of my head.
She ran the purple in the shower for another half an hour. She's got the urge. Natural botanical. She's got the urge.
What is even happening? When I regain consciousness, and the girls are entering the master bedroom. Horst's father is in bed, sleeping with Terry? Wait, what? Why? Am I still in a fever dream?
I'll blow your brains out.
What is happening?
In my private plane to take you away.
You two go and join him.
Am I still in a fever dream? Yep, apparently I am.
Thus begins the last section of the movie, the American part, the Snuff section of the movie, where this guy in a blue shirt takes this lady in white over to this strangely positioned second bed here and mutilates her.
Stop!
Just watch.
You're crazy!
Just move right back up here.
You're crazy!
Move right back up here.
Let me
You
go!
want to get a good scene? Yeah, go ahead. Watch.
It's strange that the portion of the movie this whole essay is leading toward I can't really show, because I don't think YouTube will allow it. It's about 5 minutes long, all shot in this tiny set, and the effects are really quite bad. The dude cuts off a rubber finger that looks like a cheap magician's thumb, and then red paint spills out. He then unconvincingly cuts off one of her hands with an electric handsaw, and finally cuts open her stomach, again unconvincingly, and pulls out entrails, lifting them above his head, screaming like the apes at the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey, before the film fades to white.
Shit, we ran out of film. Shit.
Did you get it? Did you get it all?
Yeah, we got it all. Yeah, let's get out of here.
The addition of this sequence was the brainchild of producer Alan Shackleton, who purchased the film Slaughter from the Findlays for a mere $5,000. They shot the final scene in one long 18-hour day. The crew you see in this final sequence is literally the crew that shot it. According to Carter Stevens, the gentleman who rented out the set for this final sequence, the shooting day was so exhausting that the actress who plays the victim had a panic attack late in the shoot.
She got it into her head that we were really going to murder her. It was for real. But she ran screaming into the green room, which was my kitchen. It took us about 15 minutes to calm her down and get her back willing to work. And one of the major points was the fact that my kids were there. We certainly weren't going to kill her in front of my children.
The film opened to massive protests, which only built up buzz around what should have been a little fetish film, a roughie as they were known at the time, and ultimately the film became a financial success. Snuff wasn't the only film of that era to convince audiences that they had just witnessed murder on camera. 5 years later, the aforementioned Cannibal Holocaust was released in Italy. It was so convincing that the film was seized by a judge in Milan after being in theaters for 10 days, reacting to rumors that the filmmakers had actually killed people and animals. Rumors were fueled in part due to the fact that the principal actors reportedly weren't seen in public after the film's release until after allegations prompted them to appear on a TV show to demonstrate their aliveness. The director Deodato had to show how they accomplished this effect, with the actress sitting on a bicycle seat and holding the fake tip of the spike in her mouth. Undoubtedly, Cannibal Holocaust owes a lot to the travelogue nature of the Mondo films in addition to the unsimulated animal cruelty, and becomes the de facto apex arc of exploitative representation of indigenous cultures that traces all the way back to Flaherty's Nanook. And not unlike Flaherty, Deodato could shield himself from criticisms of exploitation by later describing the natives as collaborators. Cannibal Holocaust also takes advantage of the classic white coat motif found in the character of NYU anthropologist Professor Harold Monroe.
I wonder who the real cannibals are.
Astute viewers of a different genre may recognize the actor who played this particular white coat as Robert Kerman, aka Richard Bala, from his more penetrative acting efforts in the film Debbie Does Dallas, an infamous porn film title that was somehow the go-to of endless jokes that even I heard, both on television and in junior high locker rooms, despite the fact that I was an incredibly sheltered kid, and, according to Wikipedia, maintains a sequel legacy that mirrors that of a successful 1980s slasher franchise, and rips off some of those titles as well. To the degree to that, I'm a little surprised the series didn't culminate in Debbie going to space like Jason or the Leprechaun movies. Then again, I guess the infamous European Emmanuelle series eventually did precisely that. This has become quite the digression, but to swing this ship back around, let me point out the coincidence that Robert Kerr's first entree into adult film roles was in the aforementioned and apparently critically acclaimed porn film Anyone But My Husband, directed by none other than Roberta Findlay. How's that for tying it all back together again? Ultimately, the ending of Snuff presages Cannibal Holocaust's formalistic documentary style. The notorious climax forefronts the presence of the crew and camera, cleverly smuggling in legitimacy without even having to resort to on-screen bogus claims of factuality, as later films like Cannibal Holocaust, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or Fargo did. Rather, the authenticity is tacitly inherited from the whiplash shift of the film telling us everything you saw before was filmed, like this, with a crew and camera, and this strategy worked on a lot of audiences. But internet age audiences are more primed to be dubious of all content because of the tsunami of misinformation on the internet. It's not that our society is more media literate or better at identifying facts, as much as it is that we've been conditioned to adopt a blanket state of disbelief. If you simply don't trust anything, you can't be called naive. Ultimately, no one has enough time to fully investigate all claims in every facet of life, medicine, politics, or otherwise, so we all eventually must submit that we all rely on faith in some authority to summarize, to aggregate facts that help us construct our world. Authorities like, maybe this guy? He's got a white coat.
Unfortunately, medical science cannot always have success. The moment death occurs, my expertise is called upon.
If you grew up in the 80s, 90s, nothing initiated a shot of adrenaline like going to the video store and realizing there was a copy of Faces of Death just sitting there, available to be rented, like it was a copy of Terms of Endearment or something. But this wasn't Terms of Endearment. It almost felt like an urban legend, but there it was. Like the Mondo films before it, but somehow less subtle and even more exploitative, the Faces of Death films purport to show real death, both animal and human. Much of the content in the first film is thankfully simulated. A notorious scene of people eating monkey brains is fortunately just as fake as the monkey brain eating scene in Temple of Doom, released 6 years later.
Chilled monkey brain.
Another film accused of exploitatively misrepresenting cultural customs for exoticized entertainment. Much of the human violence and death in Faces of Death is also fake, but it does include real grisly footage of the aftermaths of accidents, which, frankly, I'm not going to investigate myself because my willingness to view on-screen violence ends the moment it becomes real. And yet, this is not considered a true snuff film, even with the unsimulated carnage. One of the most important and lauded experimental filmmakers, Stan Brakhage, in addition to his more abstract experimental work with celluloid, also released an infamous short entitled The Act of Seeing with One's Own Eyes, which is literally just footage of a real autopsy and the embalming process of a body. Guess who's not going to watch that movie with his own eyes? This guy. So, is this a snuff film? Nope. In 1991, Charlie Sheen was handed a video cassette tape with such disturbing and violent content he got in touch with the FBI to have them investigate. Was it snuff? No. It was just the ultra-gory Japanese snuff simulation film Guinea Pig 2, Flower of Flesh and Blood, part of a long-running series of movies meant to simulate snuff. And before you think, oh, classic Japan, America has its own unrepentant torture gore film series, August Underground. Are these movies snuff? No. So where are all the snuff films at? Well, according to the FBI, nowhere.
He went out and he went to, I don't remember how many cities, but he covered the country pretty well. He was gone quite a while. He came back and he said, Kelly, it's strictly a rumor. If they were out there, I'd have them for you.
That video you saw of someone being murdered when you thought you had downloaded Weezer's album on LimeWire back in 2004? Good news! According to the FBI, that wasn't a snuff film. Bad news, yeah, there's a decent chance that it was actually footage of someone being murdered. So what's happening here? The answer is that the definition of a true snuff film is a film that involves a usually sexually related, on-screen, unsimulated murder solicited by buyers and made and sold for profit. In all the investigations they've undertaken, the FBI has never found any films that fit that definition. The rumor of true snuff films likely grew in part from, appropriately enough, the Manson family murders. But ultimately, the popularity of the concept of snuff probably had its biggest boost into popular imagination through this movie, Snuff, and the controversy surrounding it. Now, armed with a usefully disturbing word and a general tone of disgust, we shortly thereafter entered the VHS era, which brought about its own moral panics, perhaps most concretely with the video nasty censorship movement in the UK. And while there was nothing quite as formalized on our side of the pond, it tied in nicely to the constellation of American moral panics that coalesced into what we now simply call the Satanic Panic.
The four-sided is used mainly for damage from a dagger and dart.
There are 28 deaths related to Dungeons & Dragons in the last 5 years.
My next guest was used also in worshiping the devil, participated in human sacrifice rituals and cannibalism.
Indeed, the parallels between the legend of Snuff, illicit films surreptitiously being passed around in the halls of money and power, harmonizes quite nicely with rumors of esoteric, ritual satanic abuse perpetrated in secret by cloaked figures. Both stories feed the narrative of a powerful cabal that operates outside of commonplace society. Of course, this unassailable structure for conspiratorial narratives has been dusted off and reemerged yet again with things like QAnon, the ultimate 4chan gag that outgrew their modest message boards and emerged as a fully fledged cultural force. An ironic birthplace, given the fact that 4chan is the site where one is most likely to encounter snuff material, and with a cheering audience at that. But where there was once just Faces of Death VHS tapes luridly imposing their presence on the edge of video rental stores, we now have the internet. Whereas in real life, friends might grow weary or acknowledge a sense of disgust after daring one another to witness atrocities, online there's a sleepless, anonymous throng persisting on Reddit, 8chan, and others, all perpetually raising the stakes. In real life, that Faces of Death VHS was a curio that your friend group would move on from in favor of other activities. But online, the unceasing persistence of specialized content is the whole point. And so, to not conform to the accepted affect of perpetually unfazed ironic detachment is to lose the game of chicken. To out yourself as culturally incompetent, like a dad misusing modern slang. And so, those who are disgusted quietly bow out, while the most enthusiastic double down and drive the conversation to ever-increasing extremes. The myth of snuff historically implied rich elites paying for footage of graphic mutilation in the halls of power. I suspect what is far more common is people who feel disempowered, posting and celebrating appalling footage for one another so that they may take turns puffing up their chest and declaring, "We are the ones empowered enough to soak in how horrible the world truly is and not recoil, but rather to laugh." And in that way, we can convert footage of real-life graphic atrocities into a currency to help us pantomime powerful people, unaffected by fear of death or tragedy, aware of the deeper realities that the normies are too afraid to confront. Life can't be as miserable if we condition ourselves to treat pain as sustenance. I suspect the mythic stories we create around violence are just as revealing about society as the violence itself.
I see the money, man.
You'll have to take it.
Most true crime murder mysteries are ultimately stories about domestic violence reaching their tragic conclusion. But that isn't as much fun as thinking of them as Agatha Christie whodunits. Superhero movies let us live out our violent power fantasies, but always climax with CGI creatures so we don't have to be disturbed by the reality of human casualties. And with snuff films, I would guess after spending 8 months on this stupid video, are a packaging of our deeply felt resentment that the rich and powerful don't have to face legal or moral consequences like the rest of us. Maybe the myth of snuff comforts us with the promise that there's a reel of film in a vault somewhere waiting to be exposed such that no amount of money in the world will protect its authors. The Scooby-Doo villain unmasked and exposed at last. But that sounds almost hopeful, right? A bit too hopeful to be realistic, I'd say. But I think the truth is, our country is a helicopter, gently rolling onto its side with the propellers still spinning, and the most vulnerable are standing right in the way. And you can assume I'm correct. I mean, what color is my coat?